that video going. The video is going. I don't like that the blue alert stays up over the live yellow button because it's harder to tell
if it's
when
live.
it goes from getting ready to go live to live. But we're live, and I'm not going to tell you about Fight Club because that breaks the first rule. And we are chock full of the news.
We are, man.
Zoe brings bacon, says I should put a strip of bacon over my nose. Probably would help it heal. It's just a cut, folks. Just a cut. Probably from dry air. It's the night air. That's what Marianne Jurgena used to always say when my friend Mark would get sick. It's that night air. You shouldn't be out in it. Yeah, that live blogging.
Oh, geez. Man, I'll tell you what. Heady day for my Twitter feed. Like, it is just from all different directions between the WWDC and the E3, and everybody's in full live blog mode, so they're all just, using one word. It's all like one word updates with something that everyone just found out about live, right? And I have no idea at first glance whether or not it's like a new file system for one of the OSs or a new standalone game from Sony.
Yeah.
Right? It's just
Feed.
Like... Yeah, exactly.
Dark.
It's just all like, Quizzleball! I have no idea what's happening.
By the way, there's an all caps line in the second story here that is not meant to be read shouted. I just happened to accidentally turn caps lock on.
That's fine.
Now there's a dark
mode. Sierra. Sling.
By the way, I think that might be the move to cut cable.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be it. Really, I just need to find a wrestling substitute, but I think that might just be Hulu.
Okay. Well, what about their own app is still just not... Well,
USA is the real mother lover.
PlayStation View. All right, here we go. Ready?
Your captain.
We start again. I didn't have the right thing up. All right. Now I'm really ready. I'm really ready, I swear.
Let's go. I'm ready for you to be ready.
This is your captain speaking. I'd like to take a moment to remind you that this show is brought to you by listeners like you who give value for value. To show your support, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. We know you have a choice when it comes to getting your tech news, and on behalf of the crew, I thank you for choosing the Daily Tech News Show.
This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, June 13th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me, Justin Robert Young, fresh off the road, host of Night Attack, WeirdThings.com, Politics, and recently returned from Jury in Your House.
Yeah, I was in so many houses. Thank you to everybody who came out that were DTNS fans and listeners in Louisville, Cincinnati, and Chicago. We had such a great time, and I really feel like there was both of us had great community experiences this weekend. You with Scott Johnson in Salt Lake City, and we were just sending each other videos back and forth with all of our friends who we don't live near.
Yeah, it was a really good time in Salt Lake watching Warcraft, hanging out, meeting fellow fans, podcasters, etc. But today we come back and Apple, they don't give any of the animal fox. They just do their thing whenever. They don't care if it's E3 day, where every other gaming company on the planet is going to be putting out press conferences. And Microsoft, which also had a press conference running at the same time as Apple's WWDC announcements, just decided to buy LinkedIn yesterday and just make it extra special.
All those emails finally worked.
So what we're going to do today... last time we did this with Google I.O., we did a main discussion that was separate from the Google I.O. discussion, and people got mad No, people, maybe like 2 people got mad. They're like, you should have only had Google I/O. So today we're just going to talk about everything that's in the top stories as we go, and then we'll get to the emails at the end because there's just so much. It would be silly to talk about it and then talk about it again. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes we can create a beautiful Bellagio fountain of news with everything perfectly in time. This is a raging river, and we are literally just trying to survive. So please bear with us as we keep our head above water.
Hacer Paracadismo right into these headlines. WatchOS 3 can now keep apps in memory, so it can do instant launch. You can 3D look right in to see things. Not 3D look, but you can tap in and see it without even having to fully launch it. Side button is now a dock button. It pulls up the dock when you hit the side button. Control Center can be accessed by swiping up from the bottom, and you can use something called Scribble, which I like to call Newton, to write letters instead of typing them. It supports both English or Chinese. You can also press and hold the side button to call emergency service. It's a 3-second press, and then it will call automatically whatever the local emergency service number is. And then, after it's called the emergency service number, it will automatically notify any of your emergency contacts and then display your medical ID info. There's a new workout app that adds shared rings, so you can have a little friendly competition with people. There's new wheelchair settings that adapt with things like time to roll instead of time to stand. There's 2 specific workouts for wheelchairs. And a new breathe app tells you when to breathe. It's a deep breathing app, kind of like Stand, time to deep breathe. Apple Pay is now supported in apps, not just on the watch itself, and it's a free upgrade that comes in the autumn.
Well, finally, Gavin Rosdale will have his justice certs as we are reminded on our wrists when to breathe in and breathe out. I think this is certainly where we want to go with WatchOS. I am a loyal Apple Watch user. I think this update is all kind of the poo-poo platter aside from whether or not this refreshing and the quickness of app loading actually makes a difference, because as it is now, even with the most recent update, they're still unusable. You can't reliably open something in a reasonable amount of time for you to really get something out of it.
Well, they even showed how they didn't show the worst example, but they showed how slow it was to launch apps on the watch on stage, and then said, here's what it looks like in WatchOS 3, and it was fairly instant. Granted, that's demo magic, but you don't see them oftentimes show how bad the old OS was like that. So I think they're trying to acknowledge, hey, this was not optimal here. What I'm curious about is what this is going to do to the battery life of the Apple Watch, because we're not getting a new model watch, at least at this stage, and you're going to have a lot of background app activations, a lot of memory caching, and that could be a drain.
I mean, and this might just be them making that decision, because obviously the way that the apps were set up now is that they did not want to lose on battery. They wanted you to believe that this is something that can last all day. You're not going to be looking for a charger for both your watch and your phone. Now maybe they say, hey, look, now you guys understand the dark bargain that we have made. You want faster apps? Congratulations, now you have them. But go ahead and make sure you keep that cord in your pocket, homeboy, because you might wind up without a watch that has all your notifications. Now, on the other end, they can say a dead Apple Watch, or an Apple Watch in its absolute lowest power capacity that can last for days, is still functional as a timepiece in a way
fair enough, yeah,
is not functional when it runs out of battery. Apple started with new apps coming to tvOS, including Sling's live TV service coming today, along with Fox Sports Go and Molotov next month. There's also now a dark mode for viewing in the dark without the white glare. A remote app for the iPhone will include touch controls, Siri, game control with accelerometer and gyroscope, and of course keyboard input. Some kind of single sign-on will be introduced will be introduced, though Apple didn't add details. Apps downloaded to iOS will automatically download to Apple TV if available, and HomeKit and its new Home app are coming to Apple TV. The new update will be free this autumn.
By the way, new update, free this autumn. That's the refrain that we're going to be saying for all of this stuff. That's they've standardized on that for every one of these operating systems. This got the least amount of attention. They did this announcement in 10 minutes, so it wasn't much longer than what you just said. They whipped through it, and so we didn't yet get details, at least at this point. Hopefully they'll be out within the next 24 hours about what that single sign-on means. I doubt they're participating in TV everywhere. That would be huge news, but they would have to be managing like a keychain to do it some other way. So I love this idea of like, hey, I sign in once, I don't have to keep signing in to everything, but I don't know how that works.
Yeah, because one of the biggest problems with Apple TV and really any of these set-top boxes is input, right? The less you can do that, the better off that experience is always going to be, especially when you are talking about services that require authentication from a cable company and stuff like that. If we can just, hey, you want to set everything up? Here's the easy way that you can maybe do it on your phone, or maybe your phone can even authorize through other services that now you can, like, I can just log into HBO Go without having to do the annoying, like, when you go to this website, please enter in the following 5-digit code, and when you see the old elf, please recite the following.
Well, and the remote app will help with that, because now you can use the keyboard on your phone to enter some stuff. I have a feeling, though, that all this means there's a new TV everywhere, TV anywhere, I can't remember which one it is now suddenly, a service that only a few cable companies are supporting that do single sign-on.
Yeah.
And so it may be all the Apple's doing is saying, hey, we support that now. If your cable company does it, and whatever participating apps are part of it, and most of the major broadcasters are part of it, then you can use it on the Apple TV. That may be all it means, which may be why Apple sped through it so much, because it's not their own technology. In which case, HBO Now is not going to work, Sling TV is not going to work. It's not going to be single sign-in for everything.
So, yeah, they want to say it so it's a part of their bullet points, but if they didn't make a big deal about it, then, obviously, I guess the other subheadline here is that set-top boxes, still a hobby for Apple that they don't really care all that much about.
Yeah, I think they care a little more each time, but certainly not on the level that they care about the operating system, the other operating systems. Biggest news for me is Sling. Like, now I don't have to switch to the Roku to watch Sling channels. I'll be very curious how that app works. It's the first app with the new interface that they unveiled at CES to come out. So I've downloaded it and installed it, but I didn't get a chance to really play around with it with everything that was happening today. OS 10 is now called macOS. Not a big surprise. The new version that's coming out this fall will be called Sierra. You can auto-unlock it with your Apple Watch. Clipboard and copy-paste will now work across macOS and iOS. iCloud will have the ability to manage your files, so you can have a universal desktop across all your devices. Make sure you don't run out of room. You can have it automatically remove files, similar to what Dropbox is now going to do, where they say, like, we'll just keep everything in the cloud and we'll manage it for you so that your files are available. Apple Pay is coming to Safari. You'll have to use Touch ID on your iOS device, most likely your phone, to verify it, but you can then, in a website, use Apple Pay. Picture-in-Picture now works on macOS, works very similarly to the way it does on the iPad, and Siri comes to the Mac, although it is more limited than the Siri that you're going to get on iOS. macOS Sierra, free upgrade in the autumn. Also mentioned at WWDC in the lineup that came out after the keynote of a new Apple file system called Apple File System that will replace HFS.
And that seemed to be the biggest, some of the biggest buzz I saw, especially considering this is WWDC, which is obviously very developer-focused, is people still trying to wrap their head around exactly what that's going to mean going forward. But I have to say, that what we've seen a lot with these kind of announcements for the yearly incremental, Mac OS upgrades are a lot of nice features, but if anything, I feel like that is just kind of the new normal, right?
Yeah,
like
it's just features these days. Yeah, I mean, the fact that the file system wasn't even mentioned at the developer conference, when it's probably the biggest potential change to the operating system, means that's what they're trying to catch people's attention with features. And Siri was the big one. It doesn't really do all that much that's more impressive, but it's there. right? You can click on it from the dock. It will also have something up in the top right corner, a little icon that you can access it from. But it's just voice search. I mean, it is no better than what you get on Chrome OS or certainly Cortana. In fact, I think it's a little bit farther behind what Cortana does, but it's there. And that's essentially what OS 10 does now, is say, hey, guess what? We have this now.
Yeah, I mean, it's them keeping themselves in the game there. I do think that Apple is in a kind of a go or get off the pot kind of situation when it comes to freeing Siri in a world where Alexa and Google are taking big gigantic steps into the voice assistant stuff. For the record, both my Siri and Alexa were triggered while we were recording this very segment.
So the pain is felt by us as well, not just those of you at home listening on your Amazon Echo. I do love Apple Pay. I'm wondering in practice how fluid it will be to have to pick up my phone to confirm, but I still think that's more fluid than having to remember a password or even use a password manager.
I have a wallet case on my phone, so if I need to pull out my credit card, I go for my phone anyway. If I can now do it with a tap of the button on my phone instead of opening up the phone case and grabbing the card, I'll be very happy to do it. The biggest problem with Apple Pay for me is I just need more banks. I need my bank to get on it. Right now, I only have one card, and it's great for me because now it's my business card, but I don't have all the options. Apple Pay is as a technology, I think, extremely useful. As a business and family of services, it still has a ways to go before it is the absolute go-to that I think it really needs to be.
Well, I think it's obvious which operating system Apple loves the best these days, because they saved it for last and it got the most attention.
Indeed, and that is the Newton. Just kidding. iOS got the biggest list of new features in what Tim Cook called the mother of all releases. Raised to wake, rich notifications are coming, and Siri is now available to devs. Siri intelligence is being added to the keyboard too for maps, contact info, or pre-filling calendar entries, as it is multilingual typing. I'm going to really have to shut down my phone.
Yeah, well, and that's the point, is Siri will now have context available to you. So you can say things in different orders. They've really improved it on iOS in a way that was not apparent in the the Mac OS demonstration. Siri intelligence being added to the keyboard too shows that they are definitely making a big deal out of the fact that they have got some machine intelligence development here. They also made a big deal out of the fact that all the analysis happens on your phone. They are not running this through a server somewhere where your data will be kept, although they did talk about differential privacy and things like that. So it's not like they're not collecting the data. It's a little bit confusing what they're doing with it, but they are doing most of the analysis on your phone, which means you're in control of it, and yet you should still be able to get the benefit of an artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning look at your data. These keyboard things were the most exciting to me because I don't really love talking to my phone out and about. I don't want everyone to hear what I'm asking for, but having, say, a map location show up on the keyboard or pre-filling a calendar invite. Although I don't really use Calendar, I use Google Calendar. So you got to stay in the ecosystem. But I love the idea of it, is what I'm saying.
Certainly so. And you've really seen, I think, apps kind of lead the way in terms of, they have an advantage because you are already siloing exactly what you want by opening the app. So having it, be pre-filled with good information. Like, for me as a regular Uber user, the fact that they know that by and large I'm usually only going to one of 4 brunch places or the BART station is very, very helpful, and I think that there's no reason why Apple, as the conduit for all that, can't spread a lot of that functionality out to some other elements that could use it, including texting my friends or just when somebody says, "Where are you?" it pre-filling with, where I am physically.
Advanced computer vision will add facial recognition and cluster photos into memories. So in other words, it will be able to tell, like, oh, these all came from the same place. Let's make a trip location here. This looks like it was a birthday party. Let's put all that together. Plus being able to say, oh, these are the people we think are in these photos. Maps gets proactive suggestions and some common navigation elements like rerouting because of traffic, route info like gas stations. These are pretty basic things that other navigation apps have had for a long time, but they're finally coming to Apple Maps. Apple News adds subscriptions and breaking news notifications, trying to make it work more like a newspaper. A new app called Home collects all the HomeKit functions together, and Apple TV is getting a new role as the secure point for your remote access. I think that also points to the idea of what Apple wants to do with Apple TV and turning it into a home hub. The phone app adds voice transcription and an extension API for things like identifying spam numbers, for instance. Contact cards can support other apps, so you can put somebody's WhatsApp or WeChat identification information in the contact card. And starting with iOS 10, Apple will let you delete the company's built-in apps. They didn't announce this on stage, but it came out afterwards. So maps, calculator, music, videos, those will all be in the App Store. They showed up already, and we were like, well, wait a minute, are we going to be able to delete them? And The Verge says, yes, you'll be able to add and delete those. It also means that they'll be able to be updated off schedule. You don't have to wait for an operating system update to get an update to these default apps.
That's huge. I mean, that's something that people have asked for a very, very, very long time. It also shows a kind of a different philosophical view of where these, what the roles of these apps. And specifically, it's saying that the strength of iOS is in the App Store, and that includes even us, the great and powerful and wise Apple, that, yes, you can have other apps that are going to find a home in our ecosystem that would supplant the stuff that we give you. Real quick, and just a postscript to our Apple TV conversation, I kind of find the idea that Apple TV is to secure a point for remote access a little bit of I think that it's an important enough idea that they want to put it out there, but the fact that Apple TV is not being taken more seriously is something that I think ultimately will sort of hamper it. Either they're going to go all in on Apple TV or an Apple TV-like device or some kind of home hub, or they're not. And right now it seems like Apple TV is more focused in the way that they are as just being an entertainment hub and not necessarily a way that you can connect all of your smart functionality. But all things being equal, like this is a lot of stuff here.
Well, and you could point to everything and find a predecessor, right? There's tons of home hubs out there that are end-to-end encrypted. There's tons of facial recognition. Facebook is the king of facial recognition, and Google has been doing facial recognition in their photos and coming up with these moments-like aggregations for you. So none of this is new, but that's always the way. That is always what Apple does. Apple does not do things usually, never say never, but usually what they do is say, okay, we finally figured out how to make it work the way that they think is the right way to make it work.
Meanwhile, messaging got a lot of upgrades, including rich links, inline video, and live camera preview. Emojis are 3 times bigger, and you can auto highlight words to replace with emojis with one tap. Bubble effects allow you to make responses loud, gentle, slam in, or hide behind an invisible ink, and you have to swipe to reveal it. You can also add background images, handwrite text, and send drawings and heartbeats. iMessage apps are now open for developers to add extra functions. This kind of reminds me, Tom, was it during Facebook's bot conversation that they added like whimsy as one of their key elements that
I don't remember. Is that right? That sounds right.
It was either messaging or bots. It might be bots. But they added things have to be fun, and this to me seems like Apple taking seriously. And this is something that I've always thought for a while, but nobody really makes the point that for all that we talk about the boom of messaging apps, if you just look at messages.app, and if you were to slice it out of the iOS system, right, and just looked at it as its own impact, it has a gigantic footprint, and it has done that with very, very little of a lot of the secret sauce that has made all these other messaging apps super, super popular. The one thing that you just know is that it's pre-installed on iOS. This, to me, is a big sign that they are taking that more seriously, and their position in that ecosystem is not just, hey, look, here's how you send SMSs. This is, let's do more, bigger, more fun, more interesting, and give a lot of the creature comforts that have kind of been around in other apps for a while.
I mean, they're not doing stickers, but they're doing 3 times bigger emojis.
Yeah.
They're not really making their app a platform, but they are providing this sort of extra function app. So it's a part way down the road of where every other messaging app has already gone. And yet at the same time, they're allowing, they mentioned WeChat a lot, partly because they're just targeting the Chinese audience where WeChat is huge, but also because I think they realize that, well, these other messaging apps, we need to include them. We need people really are using them. We're not going to get Chinese users to just switch over to iMessage. But at the same time, they want to beef up iMessage for the loads of people over here in North America that are using it. So I think these are all must-haves if you want to keep your messaging app at all competitive for people. I don't know that I really think replacing emojis with one tap makes sense. People seem to get the most excited. That got the biggest applause of anything in the announcement. Like, why would typing? I have to type out an entire word, then it's automatically highlighted, and then by tapping that, I can replace it with one character. Now, I get searching for emojis is not a fast process, so maybe this does make some sort of efficient sense. Certainly a psychological thing.
No, this is a real functionality. This emoji search is the reason why I try to use Gboard as my default keyboard, because of GIF search and emoji search. This is their own version of emoji search. It's just type a thing, and then if it highlights, you get to do that little thing. Now, that's not search. It doesn't give you all the functionality of search, but I do think that people like to use emojis, and it can add a playful tone in a world where text is read specifically by the receiver, right? And this is a problem as old as the internet. Any way that you can specifically intone silliness, fun, sarcasm is at a premium. And emojis do that. So I think that this is a little bit more serious than we might initially think. But, at the end of the day, it is just deciding, typing 2 girls dancing and then, just hitting it and getting those 2 little ballerina girls with their legs out.
Yeah, listen, man, I am certainly not going to be the one that says this is too silly, it won't be successful, because those 2 things are mutually exclusive necessarily. And real quickly, I just want to throw in a mention of Swift Playground. It was Tim Cook's last announcement when he came back out on stage. It's a way to teach kids to program in Swift. And it's real simple. In fact, if you're not a kid, you still might want to use it if you want to learn how to program in Swift. And it should be available in free beta next month.
Hey, what do you say we get in the car and head down the 101 from the Bay Area to Los Angeles, California?
Come with me to the Electronic Entertainment Expo, where Microsoft announced 2 new Xboxes. Project Scorpio is a device that doesn't even have an official name, much less a price or release date, but it is targeted to come out around the holiday season of 2017. That's more than a year from now. We'll have 8 CPU cores, 6 teraflops of GPU power, support VR gaming, offer true 4K gaming with 60 hertz rendering and uncompressed pixels, and Microsoft emphasizes accessories and games will be compatible across all the Xboxes. Xbox One, Project Scorpio, and the new Xbox S. Justin, tell us about that one.
It's going to be 40% smaller with an integrated power supply, no power brick. Comes with a controller and with textured grip and Bluetooth. Supports 4K Ultra HD video, including 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray and HDR for both gaming and video. Has a built-in IR blaster, but no Connect port. Play your taps for that. You'll need to get the Connect with USB adapter if you want to still work with it. It can be stood on its side, too, just like the Xbox 360. The Xbox One S will be available in early August with 2 terabytes of hard drive for $399. 2 standard versions will be available soon after, with a 500 gig edition for $299 and a 1 terabyte for $349. That seems like, obviously, the Xbox division knows their price points, but that just seems crazy pants to offer a 1 terabyte for $50 more than the 500 gigs and $50 less than the 2 terabyte, right?
Yeah, I mean that's we're making the money on games pricing right there. I wasn't.
That is movie theater popcorn pricing. That's like, would you like a large for 75 cents more?
Right, exactly. I'm not shocked that Xbox came out with 2 pieces of hardware, but I am surprised. Like, the one thing people are going to be most incensed about is you're giving us new hardware. And they're like, great, not only are we giving you new hardware in August, but also next year as well. They just jumped into the pool. They're like, get used to it. New pieces of hardware every year is where we want to go, and this is the beginning. And in fact, the press conference opened up with a video of the Xbox One S. Now, I imagine part of that might be because of the leak of all the Xbox One S details yesterday, which the conspiratorial part of my mind is like, well, Sony gave that weird interview that came out in the Financial Times on Friday about, yeah, we're going to have a new PlayStation 4, not anytime soon, and it won't support 4K gaming, but it'll have 4K video. So Microsoft might have wanted to leak theirs out because Beatmaster was one of the people in our chat room just now saying, Microsoft always rips off Sony's idea, and that's what it looks like. It looks like they just followed Sony because Sony got the word out first on Friday. So they just throw that at you right away. I swear, Justin, I swear I heard boos when Phil Spencer came on stage after the Xbox One S video. But there were enough of the developers in the front rows applauding that I couldn't tell for sure.
All right. Well, I'm sure that we'll spend the next few hours perusing through all of that and sifting through the audio with a fine-tooth comb. Let's just assume that this is obviously for Microsoft going to be the new normal. They very much had, I think you could charitably say, a troubled launch for the Xbox One. They ceded control of the console market to Sony. This is interesting, but it also kind of is such a radical departure for how consoles have been sold pretty much since the beginning, right? I mean, is this the official death? If Microsoft has their way, this is the official death of the 4 to 6 year development cycle, right?
I mean, if we actually get the same official announcement from Sony or more this evening at 6 o'clock, I think you could say it. Certainly, Microsoft is signaling, we would like to just keep doing this, and 4K is a good way to make the justification. To say, look, all we're doing is providing a version that takes advantage of your new TV. Most of you guys didn't have a 4K TV when the Xbox One came out. Why would we put out one that could support 4K? But now the 4K TVs are coming along. A few of you guys might want to buy one. We want to provide you one that gives you 4K. And they're being very clear. All your games work on all 3 consoles, including the unnamed Project Scorpio. All your accessories work on all 3 consoles.
That's the huge part about it, right? Is that part of what we are hardwired to think is that with a new console comes this continental divide where now the things that worked before do not work going forward. That seems to be something that will be different. But let's make no mistake. We talked about Apple and their announcements earlier. Microsoft is looking and saying, oh wait, so you guys are spending $500 on a phone every year. You're spending $300 on smartwatches. What about me? What about Raven? They want their money. If somebody wants to update their Xbox every single year, $300 is a very good price point for that. There will be people who just give Microsoft or Sony, if they make the very similar announcement, at $300. It makes a lot of sense.
And we got a couple of announcements for updates to services. One called Xbox Play Anywhere is the result of Windows 10 Universal Apps. So you can now get games bought for Xbox One on your Windows 10 box for free. You buy it in one place, you get it free in the other place. And basically, you just get cloud access to the game. Supports cross-platform play. You can even pick up a game where you left off on the other platform if you save games to the cloud anyway. If you save them locally, that's not going to work. Forza Horizon 3, Gears of War 4, Halo Wars 2, and ReCore are among the games that will support this Xbox Play Anywhere at launch. So it won't work for every single game.
This is also another very interesting thing that it seemed to get a fairly positive buzz from what I was able to see and following along on social media. But people want to be able to play where they want, and especially because PC gaming, especially with VR, has experienced a continued a sustained moment in the sun. This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and Apple likes to think of their Apple TV as a gaming device, and it's the same motivation for them to say, hey, when you download something on your iPhone, if the app exists for tvOS, we're going to put it over there. Microsoft's tapping into that, saying, yeah, it's all Windows. Doesn't matter whether it's on an Xbox or a Windows 10 desktop machine. We're going to give you access to that if we can.
Stuff like this also kind of shows a little bit more of why Microsoft was putting such a do-or-die emphasis on Windows 10, right?
Yeah.
That, they want these things. All these features don't matter if people are hanging out on Windows 7, especially gamers that are afraid of change. So that might be why. I don't know if I'm ready to forgive them for force upgrading me from 7 to 10, but I can understand. Xbox Live is also adding clubs on Xbox. They're communities that share your interest in games and play styles. A looking for group feature helps you find a gang to join. Live is also getting Arena, a tournament platform. Publishers can run tournaments on the service, and EA will bring FIFA to Arena in coming years, Tom.
Yeah, it feels like they're taking MMO features and sort of making them into wider community features. Clubs are similar to, like, say, guilds in World of Warcraft. There's arenas in all kinds of games. So that makes perfect sense. And some people are even pitching this as like, hey, it's a safe space to hang out and talk with people. If that gaming culture, open nature gets you down, you may be able to find a club you enjoy, and then you have people that you trust to play with, etc.
Yeah, and that's huge, because by and large now, if you have a pretty selected group of people that you can pop in and play multiplayer games with, it's going to be more fun than going in there and getting a lot of what has become, just the some of the gross stuff that comes out of TeamSpeak and stuff like that.
All right, we are done with the Microsoft E3 announcements, but not done with the Microsoft announcements. Microsoft announced that they have agreed to buy LinkedIn for $26.2 billion in cash. That it's arguable whether that's the biggest acquisition they've ever made if you adjust for inflationary dollars in their long history, but it's certainly the largest in a long time, way bigger than what they paid for Nokia. Jeff Weiner will stay on as CEO of LinkedIn, reporting to Satya Nadella. They say LinkedIn will maintain independent branding and corporate culture. Microsoft did detail how it plans to use LinkedIn's social graph as an integrated sales tool with Dynamics, their CRM, and LinkedIn owns online learning site lynda.com, so you can imagine they might want to use that to promote some of their software or educate people about Microsoft software. In a memo to employees, Nadella indicated LinkedIn would feed into Office as well. So there you go. Both boards approved the agreement, and it's expected to close by the end of 2016. They bought LinkedIn, Justin. Now, Paul Thurrott on Thurrott.com says they're making the same mistake again. They're buying something that they don't need and aren't going to be able to integrate well, same as they did with Skype.
What I would say, as much as Thurrott knows more about Microsoft and Microsoft culture than I will, he has forgotten more than I will ever know. LinkedIn is in and of itself a successful company, right? I mean, the reason why this price is so high is because you are adjusting for projected revenue over a certain amount of years. Skype has always been a troubled, weird company that, as dually popular as it is hard to integrate into anything. It's the reason why Google didn't buy it initially, despite the fact that it would have seemed to be a very interesting acquisition for them. And this is pre-Google Talk. It's just because their architecture, Skype's architecture, has, and even now, is just hard to update for the modern era. LinkedIn, on the other hand, seems to me like a smarter buy. It also, in the modern world of acquisitions, which we have seen Facebook do very, very well, just add it to the portfolio. Let it operate right next to you. If it's already making money, it's not like being owned by Microsoft is immediately going to make it make less money. Microsoft already does a tremendous amount in terms of selling to enterprise. If LinkedIn can just give them data that makes that smarter, richer, more interesting, that seems like a bonus. If anything, you can debate whether or not $26.2 billion and exactly how that deal went down is maybe paying too much for it. But as far as what LinkedIn is, it exists successfully. I can't see why. I mean, yeah, if Thurrott's right and what they really want to do is fold it into the Borg, yeah, that'll be a disaster. But if they want to just let it do what it's going to do, why isn't this a good idea?
No, you took words right out of my mouth. I fully respect Paul too, and I think he's probably right. I'm afraid he's going to be right, but I'm hoping what you just described is what they do. And Nadella does things differently, so that may be the case where they don't pull LinkedIn into Office. They just use it as something that can complement Office, but not at the expense of the LinkedIn product. They don't change the LinkedIn product. They leave it where it is. Now, you get some arguments that people say, LinkedIn's stale. They haven't been growing as fast as they should. So that could be another wrinkle in this that undermines it for Microsoft. But if LinkedIn stays strong as LinkedIn and can get a little boost by the synergies, et cetera, as long as they let it go, then yeah, I think it could be something where, like Minecraft, you've got a property that can survive on its own and be a good piece of diversification for you should other elements of the company start to fade.
All right, so let's also have a LinkedIn conversation right now. LinkedIn very much is a company that gets a bad reputation because of their spammy emails and because it is thought to be this stale, weird, spammy operation. LinkedIn is the modern resume. LinkedIn is the modern way that you can look for jobs. What it has done very effectively is work itself in to mainstream corporate culture. And when you can say, it's not growing, maybe it's become stale, in that world, it will also take a long time for it to filter out. People will be looking at that because it is not exactly a bleeding edge tech savvy society. LinkedIn cracked that code. So if that's what it is and it's making that cash, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously not the two most popular actors in the world of the tech scene.
Right.
But, listen, they are both very successful, and I can't see, as long as they maintain a separation of church and state, why it can't continue to be both.
Yeah, and Big Jim in the chat room pointed out, it's important to note which person Jeff Weiner is reporting to. He's reporting to Nadella. This is not, and they'll be folded into the services group. They are the cloud group. That I think tells you that they plan, at least for the time being, they can always change their mind, but at least for the time being, LinkedIn is going to continue to be LinkedIn, and that's what they keep saying.
All right. One last thing, and I can understand where Thorat's coming from, because if now, to have an online awesome networked resume, you have to be using Microsoft products. That is a disaster.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Even just partway down that road is a problem. Yeah.
Hungary passed legislation Monday giving the National Communications Authority the power to block internet access to, quote, illegal dispatcher services. The move comes in response to demands from taxi drivers to outlaw Uber. Services without permits will be first fined and then have their internet access blocked for a year. Uber told Reuters that its drivers have permits to drive taxis. The new legislation comes into effect in 31 days.
Now, Hungary's got some interesting governmental controversies going on outside of the world of technology that I think bear on this a little bit, just wanting to control certain elements of the society, usually involving the press. But I'm very curious about Uber saying, yeah, we've got the permits, and Hungary saying, well, we're going to require them to have permits. So somebody's missing something here, and I don't know if it's the taxi drivers saying, yeah, they say they have permits, but they don't, and once we get this law, we can prove it. I don't know.
Very often what I find these kinds of stories are, well, A, they're tricky to report. They're tricky to really keep a handle on when you're doing analysis like we are here. But this always just feels like doing business in different countries with different cultures, with different governments are, they're all their own little dance steps. And who knows if this is just what that is, one powerful lobby saying to the government that Uber needs to be shut down, and this is maybe the government's way of saying, hey, look, we're cracking down on them, and Uber's saying, well, yeah, okay, well, we talked to this guy, and next thing you know, we all got taxi licenses, so who knows?
I got a couple more stories out of E3 before we're done here. Meta, makers of the Meta 2 headset that does VR and AR, raised $50 million. Company says they're going to use that money to enter China and continue to develop their next headset, the Meta 3. Meanwhile, the OS VR, open source VR developers headset HDK2, will be available in July for $399. Has 2160 by 1200 OLED panels at 441 pixels per inch with a 110-degree field of view supporting 9 frames per second. The HDK does not come with headphones or a controller, but you can plug your own headphones in and use, and if you're on Windows, you can use an Xbox controller if you already have one. So hence the cheaper price. But even at $400, that's quite a bit lower, even if you have to provide your headphones and controller yourself.
Yeah, I think all of these products will be dependent on developers. If there is an overabundance of VR games and experiences, then the devices like this will thrive. If it remains pooled or limited within the Oculus, Vive, PlayStation ecosystems, then these will not do nearly as well.
Yeah, and we're going to see loads of VR coming out of E3. There's no doubt about that.
Speaking of the Vive, at their E3 press conference, Bethesda Softworks announced that Fallout 4 is coming to the HTC Vive in 2017. The company also announced new DLC for the game with Contraptions Workshop, Vaultec Workshop, and Nuka World coming out through the summer. Finally, their mobile game Fallout Shelter will come to PC next month.
I thought they were doing a new mobile game when I first glanced over these headlines, and I got really excited. Fallout Shelter coming to the PC is not bad, but I love Fallout Shelter. That was great. And yeah, Fallout 4 on the HTC Vive might suck me into that universe, I'll be honest.
Very excited.
Yeah.
We have Fallout 4 on this computer. I have not yet touched it. Fallout in a Vive. Very, very, very daddy-like.
Hey, thanks to everybody who submitted stories on our subreddit. It always helps us understand what kind of stuff you're into and put together a better lineup every day. So big thanks to Loki Robert, Abatuela Condolce, Steve I.O., and more. Like, even on a day like today when we're going to talk about WWDC, put those stories in there anyway, because a lot of people just pop by the subreddit to see what's going on. There's 6,244 chat realmers in there, so be one of them. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com, and that is a look at our top stories. Our pick of the day comes from D2 Suarez. It's a Mac function key app. We had one of these last week. This is another one. He was frustrated that he couldn't use the rewind, play, pause, fast forward buttons to control content in Chrome, just like the person last week. So D2 Suarez says, I searched and found StreamKeys Chrome plugin at streamkeys.com. Works with a lot of major streaming sites besides the Google Play service, the Google Music service. Works with Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and more. You can find it at streamkeys.com. Just another way to take control of those function buttons if that's what you need to do.
That is rad. I am very much excited for that.
Global hotkeys for your favorite music players. Send your picks to us, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. We want to hear from you. And you can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Thank you to loads of emails from people. Excellent emails. We're just going to get to one today. It's from Thinnis, who points out that a big part of the shock of the refresh of the PS4 and now the Xbox One is that the last console cycle was very long. If you look up the history of Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation, Atari, etc., the one thing that stands out is the 8 years for both the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Before then, Sega was a steady 4-year refresh cycle, and Nintendo and Sony were about on 5. The other aspect that people seem to forget is the Xbox 360 received several redesigns during its life cycle. Maybe you forget this because Microsoft replaced it so many times for you, or you bought a new one every couple of years anyway, but the original version did not ship with HDMI. Later versions did. That's very analogous to adding 4K in a way. This also allowed better 1080p upscaling, something that the original Xbox 360 lacked. He says the last generation's long cycle was beneficial in many ways, but it also hurt gaming. As a PC gamer, I, for one, was grateful to see this generation arrive because the last 3 years of the previous cycle were terrible. The ports we got with their washout textures and low-resolution models were really awful. And then he says, you know what? These new consoles aren't great with their 8 gigs of RAM, driving 1080p gaming at 30 or 60 hertz. He says that's something that's hurt the Xbox One especially. So Thinis says, start looking forward to more regular purchases of consoles and more remastered games now with better graphics and enhanced shaders while still being able to play your older games.
So, this obviously I will politically say that the gaming crowd can often be loud and hair triggered. This seems like just the logical move, though.
Yeah.
And one that ultimately better serves everybody who wants the best console gaming experience.
You know what? If I could defend the loudness, it would be to say that kind of pressure has made sure that both Sony and Microsoft are bending over backwards to say everything you can do with the new consoles, you can do with the console you have today. We're not going to leave you behind. And I think that pressure will keep up. It's forcing them to just say, all we're doing is making consoles that have better video, that have better options, but we're not making them with new functions that won't work on the older machines.
And that's ultimately what, by giving them different names and essentially creating a yearly product cycle for consoles, they are giving themselves or buying themselves the ability to hype the new feature, to hype the new thing. Now, they were very reluctant to do that initially, and the reason why they just made new versions of Xboxes instead of saying, this is the Xbox 360 in 1 and 360 in 2, right? Is because they didn't want to face backlash and they didn't want to make it seem like they were leaving people behind. It was like, look, it's the same thing, but now minor things, a new coat of paint, an HDMI port. Look at that. They want to be able to yell and scream about these devices every single year, and that's what they're doing. But I don't think that they would be able to do that without making the peripheral market compatible throughout all of them, because like that would always be the biggest complaint, and it doesn't make sense for them to like step out on a stage and say, love us for these things, if they're just going to get tomatoes thrown at them.
Well, we're going to talk more about this tomorrow with Patrick Beja, who has been covering these live at frogpants.com/live with Scott Johnson. So tomorrow, Patrick Beja and Paul Spain from New Zealand, who's been at E3, will join us. We'll talk a little bit more about what we've talked today and also add in what happens with Sony and Nintendo, as their announcements will happen before tomorrow's show. And then on Wednesday, we'll do some wrap-ups with Raj Diout from Australia, who's been at the show as well, along with Scott Johnson. So keep up with E3 right here at dailytechnewsshow.com. Justin Robert Young, what do you got going on? Tell folks about.
Oh, hey, why don't you come over and watch all the fine shows that we do? Night Attack tomorrow night, and Hotline Monday normally is on Monday. It's not just a clever name, but because of the E3 coverage, we're going to bump it to Wednesday. So if you are not able to listen to it on Mondays, then go ahead and keep an eye on my social media at Justin R. Young to find out when we're going to do it. It'll probably be the same time, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, but we'll be talking all sorts of fun stuff, including Game of Thrones, Warcraft. It is the internet's foremost geek call-in show. So get your dial-in fingers ready and talk to me and Scott Johnson.
Absolutely. This show is entirely supported by you. If you're willing to support the show and allow us to do bigger and better stuff, we ask that, just give us $1 or more. dailytechnewsshow.com/support. Those of you who are already supporting us, you guys are the best. Patreon.com/DTNS to support on an ongoing basis. And don't forget, we have milestones. Like, we want to get to the next milestone so we can pay Peter Wells to be doing that Day 6 international version of the show every week. But there's other things that we can do too. The weekly Tech Fuse blog post by Mike Range sums up the week's news in the most enjoyable fashion I could think of. They're hilarious. And it's also another good summary of just what happened over the past week. Go find it, dailytechnewsshow.com. Just look for the weekly Tech Views blog post on Saturdays, usually in the evening. And you will enjoy it. I promise you. It's good stuff. Our email address is feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. That's 593-2459. Catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Like I said, back tomorrow with Patrick Beja and Paul Spain. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Yes! We did it.
Yeah.
Felt good, too.
Yeah, that was a lot, man. I was kind of joking about keeping our head above water, and then halfway through, I'm like, oh my God, there's still so much. It won't stop coming.
And really, we're only about 10 minutes longer than normal, but it felt like even more.
You guys covered a lot. I know you did. It's like, it's really... I thought you guys wouldn't stop talking.
That's always what's glowing.
That's what you want to leave them feeling.
All right, let's see. Titles. One login to rule them all. Of course, alluding to the whole OS 10 thing. OS 10 is dead. Long live Mac OS. Hungary isn't Hungary for Uber. Little alliteration. Those are all by Silverblade. Microsoft finally gets LinkedIn. Message in a bottle. Ha ha ha. Let's see. Apple like a honey badger. Lord of the Home Hub. Mother of all releases. Big ass emojis. Apple's not taking my breath away. Clubbing the Xbox. LinkedIn 365. If they, incorporate Office and whatever. Jury is still out on WWDC announcements. Get ready for Meta VR. Viva la Fallout.
I mean, what? So what? It's funny because we mentioned it a little bit lower in there. Probably the biggest news is LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. That's huge. See what else other LinkedIn. Microsoft finally gets.
Remember when we were joking and everyone was like, "Oh my God, how insane is Zuckerberg for spending $2 billion on Instagram?"
Right.
$2 billion.
Which worked out great so far. Like,
no, I
it's
mean,
not been a problem.
Like, geez, of course.
Let's see. Time to breathe. Apple's not taking my breath away. DTNS at WWE3DC. You
Got
want
all
new
the
hardware?
words.
We got new hardware. Hungary for a lift. Defending the loudest. Upgrade now to throw more shade.
Microsoft adds LinkedIn to its network. I'm trying to spin off the Tom, please add me to your LinkedIn network.
Add Microsoft to your LinkedIn network.
MSN, Microsoft Network. Microsoft finally gets LinkedIn.
Link in with Microsoft.
I don't know. What do you guys like? Anything?
Nothing really jumps out at me.
Yeah,
Although
I'm tempted
I do
at this point to just say WWDC and Xbox E3.
Yeah.
Because it rhymes. Hold on. I have to take a call from Brian Brushwood.
Oh, what a wiener.
Hey, Brian. We're still going in the post show, man.
Oh, hey, okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, yeah, I'm Brian Brushwood, and this is...
Okay, cool. Bye. He's like, oops, called too early.
Microsoft Friends LinkedIn. The top getting is Microsoft finally gets LinkedIn by Big Jim.
Well, should we go with that or just WWDC and Xbox E3?
Yeah, you can do that, but there won't be any.
I'm always for I'm always for lamer titles. I'm like Mr. Lame title.
So you want the one I came up with?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally get what you.
You wanted something lame, Tom, and you delivered.
I'm here
I
for
like
you.
my podcast titles like file names, right? Like
Right. I don't put too much stock in how much that does for a podcast. But yeah, sometimes when it gets difficult, when there's nothing just like really grabbing you, and especially on a day like today when we have so much going on,
even like for us, right? Like
Yeah.
if we want to look up to say like, if we want to go back and say, oh look, we were right about this LinkedIn thing, or
Right.
we got a really good point about this when we first talked about it. Like if it's called like, LinkedIn for such a silly goose Vive Fallout something, like then we're not going to be able to find it.
Such a goose.
Such a goose.
Gets linked E3.
All right, I'm gonna tap out and go get some food.
All right, man. Thanks for putting up with the travel arrangements.
Oh, dude, man,
Good show.
it's almost nostalgic to have a big travel situation that was out of my hands.
Yeah. It's awesome.
All right, peace
All right,
out.
cheers. Well, I'm going to take us offline because I just need to export this and upload it. And we've said enough so
Yes.
far at this point. So take care, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.